I've seen that same disappointment play out a lot when people go for the cheapest single-needle sewing machine they can find. You end up with a unit that can barely handle a simple straight stitch on cotton, and then you're stuck buying a replacement or, worse, a whole new machine after a few weeks of frustration. That hesitation is real, especially when you're trying to decide if a mid-range industrial model is worth the extra cash. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When I first started looking at the Consew 199R, I wasn't just scanning the spec sheet. I spent a few hours reading forums where small shop owners talk about drop feed versus the more common needle feed machines, and I watched a couple of YouTube demos where people actually stitch denim, canvas, and even leather. The big question that kept coming up was whether a drop feed machine like this would give you the kind of control you need without turning your workspace into a noisy, jittery mess. The answer, for many, boiled down to three things: consistency of stitch length, the ease of threading a heavyweight bobbin, and how the built-in table changes the workflow. If you're a hobbyist who only occasionally mends a hem or sews a pillowcase, the 199R probably feels a bit like buying a sports car when you only need a commuter. It's built for continuous operation, has a motor that can run for hours without overheating, and comes with an assembled table that adds a solid work surface. That table is more than just a platform. It lets you feed fabrics that are too thick for a regular home machine without the fabric constantly pulling or bunching. I saw a small boutique owner use it to stitch through multiple layers of denim for a line of denim jackets, and the machine kept the fabric flat and the stitches even, which is something you struggle with on a standard domestic needle feed. On the flip side, the drop feed mechanism means the fabric is pulled from below rather than being moved by the needle itself. That gives you a lot of flexibility with thick or slippery materials, but it also requires a bit of a learning curve. The first time I tried to sew a pair of canvas tote bags, the fabric wanted to drift a little before the needle caught it, so I had to adjust my feed pressure and watch the tension dial more closely. If you're used to the set-and-forget feel of a home machine, that extra attention can feel like a step backward. The good news is that once you dial it in, the machine holds that setting for long runs, which is why many small batch manufacturers swear by it. You should buy the Consew 199R. If you're running a side business that makes upcycled clothing, upholstery, or heavy-duty accessories, this is the kind of machine that lets you scale up without having to buy a whole industrial line. The motor is robust enough for non-stop stitching, and the included table eliminates the need to buy a separate workbench. It's also a solid upgrade for anyone who has outgrown a standard home machine but isn't ready to invest in a fully automated, multi-needle setup. The drop feed gives you better control over fabric feed, which is a genuine advantage when you're dealing with leather straps, thick fleece, or layered quilts. Who should skip it? If your projects are limited to lightweight fabrics, simple repairs, or you only stitch a few items a month, the extra power and table will sit idle most of the time. In that case, a quality domestic machine with a decent motor will be more cost-effective and easier to store. Also, if you don't have a dedicated space for an industrial table, the footprint of the 199R can feel imposing. The machine is not portable. It's meant to stay in a fixed spot, so a cramped apartment studio might make it a poor fit. In terms of practical strengths, the first thing most users notice is how steady the stitch length stays when you're running through thick material. Because the fabric is fed from below, there's less chance of the needle dragging the material, which translates into cleaner seams on heavy fabrics. The motor's durability is another plus. It's rated for long-run usage, and in the few hours I ran it continuously, the machine stayed cool and never gave any warning signs of strain. The pre-assembled table is a real time saver. You can unpack, plug it in, and start stitching without fiddling with bolts and clamps. The weaknesses are more about ergonomics than outright defects. The foot pedal is a bit stiff compared to some newer models, which can cause a slight delay in response when you try to speed up a seam. Also, the drop feed system, while great for thick material, can make it harder to achieve very fine stitch lengths on lightweight cotton. You end up needing to manually adjust the feed pressure more often. Finally, because the machine is designed for industrial use, the noise level is noticeable. It's not a bedroom-friendly whisper, but it's typical for this class of equipment. A practical scenario that illustrates both the strengths and the